welcome back to an episode of the Nerdy Brigade. Today we have
Donald.
And Scott.
And Brody.
and welcome you all back to another episode of the Global Tier List Podcast. Now, the last time we finished up our childhood marathon, and we also made the tier list just a fair bit more chunky, as we have now plus tiers for everything, so that we can more accurately describe our opinions and all such. Today, however, if you did not see when I glanced over here at the bottom, we are starting our Marvel movie marathon. Just like our reasons for starting the Star Wars marathon, this is mostly because we had different opinions about the rest of the movies, so we just decided to see how they all stack up after we give them a proper rewatch. As for how we're going to be doing this, we're going to be doing this in the order that they released as films. So we're going to be starting off with Iron Man 1. We're going to give our predictions of where we think it's going to place in the tier list. And then afterwards, we're going to watch it on our own time. And then we're going to give our raw reviews and place it just like usual. So now let us start with our predictions. Donnie, you are good to go.
I think Iron Man is a really solid movie. So, as it's going to be a really solid movie, I'm going to put it above Men in Black 1. The villain's a little cheesy, but I just remember that being just one of the best superhero movies in that early stage of Marvel when it was just getting started.
Yeah, I agree. I've actually watched this movie fairly recently, and I think it's still pretty solid. So, I think maybe right above Rise, below Return of the Jedi.
I haven't watched this movie in a super long time. Last time I probably watched this, I might have been 7 or 6. So, from what I remember, it was pretty good. But, yeah, maybe an A+ tier above, below Men in Black.
As for myself, I'm gonna do something a little bit of a hot take here, and I'm gonna say Iron Man. I'm just gonna guess a little bit, so not all of our predictions are super stale. I'm gonna say it's only gonna be an A tier, not an A+. However, compared to most of the people here, I'm probably the least likely person to be correct, and not only because it has been a super, super long time since I have seen this movie. I've heard a lot of things about it, and of course I have watched it, but that was years and years ago, around the time it was originally released. So it's not necessarily like for these guys, again, they've watched it recently. I'm a little bit out of the loop, and that's gonna be fair for most of the movies. Just a spoiler for myself. I still think Iron Man is an enjoyable film. I really from what I remember, I think Tony has a pretty good arc throughout the entire movie, and the special effects held up really, really well. This is all just from what I can remember. I don't know. There's just something that I feel like is missing from my memory that would make me want to predict it an A+ or higher. So that's why I'm going to place it where I have. As for where we're going to be going next, let's get on with the movie, honestly. So yeah, we're going to cut to our raw reviews in a little bit. Boink! Alrighty, we are back after watching the movie, and now we're going to place it on the tier list properly. And its current position right now is just from our predictions, so don't worry about that. Brody, you're up to give your first review, and we'll continue after that. Alright, you are good to go.
Alright, so we're starting off pretty good. I'd say this is a really decent movie. A very good watch. I'd recommend it. I'd recommend Iron Man. My only real problems with it is the villain is, I don't know. He's cheesy to an extent, but also super. I don't know. It's just. I have a problem with the character himself. It feels very confusing whether he just wants to kill people and sell weapons, or if he just wants to sell weapons, or if he just wants to kill people. It doesn't really matter all that much, though, in terms of relating to the story. Just a little confusing. Either way, he's a bad guy. He states it a lot. So, yeah. What else? The beginning takes a little longer than I expected, but honestly, it was welcome. It was a bit different than what I thought was going to start off the movie. I liked this movie. I'd say above, no, below Focus. Below Focus is where I'd put this movie. Scott.
Yeah, this is a pretty solid, pretty fun movie. I mean, it's a billion-dollar Marvel movie, so it's a fuck you. Yeah. Pretty good movie. It's pretty well done. Gotta love the I have no idea what I was gonna say there. I really like Iron Man. I mean, who doesn't? I think this movie checks all the bases. I think the biggest shortcoming of this movie is Stain. For me, I don't really understand him. I don't get his motivation because it mentioned at the beginning of the movie that he was like the co-founder of the company alongside Howard Stark, which like, okay, that's fine. But then it also says later in the movie that like when Tony's car gets blown up in the Middle East and he gets like captured, like it gets revealed that that was a hit on him, which is like cool and all, but there's no motivation for that or nothing that's explained. I don't understand that at all. Then yeah, that was, I mean, he's obviously got something against Tony, and he was against Tony like even more since he decided to stop the company from making weapons, which makes sense, but he had ordered that hit before that happened. So why I feel like that was never really explained. Like Brody said, I don't really know what his motivation is. I mean, I guess to make money by selling weapons, and just like that's the best way for him to make money, I guess. Um, but I feel like that's still not a good. Like it just seems like he kills people for fun, or just
Yeah,
like
I'm
fucks with
sorry
shit.
for interjecting here,
No,
but
you're
like
good.
he definitely like tries to kill people during the fight scene with um Tony at the end. So like
Yeah,
it really convolutes his motivation for me at least.
yeah, I agree with you. Like, is he supposed to just be psycho, or?
No, well,
I
I mean,
mean,
I don't think there's really a plot hole anywhere. He just wants to assassinate Tony, and pays
right,
terrorists to do
right,
it
right. But I don't like. There's no motivation given for that. Like
because he would take over the company. He has a
Yeah, no,
controlling
he would
share.
take over the
he
company.
already does. He already owns it.
That is
All right, that's fair.
No, he
That's
doesn't.
fair. But I
He was only
still.
able
I
to
mean,
do
I don't
that
know.
because he convinced the board that Tony had PTSD.
I guess if you like break it down, like you're right. You're right.
The plot makes sense.
Um, but yeah, no, the plot does make sense. I'm not
We're just
saying
going
that, but I feel like the villain character himself is a little like he's
Oh yeah,
kind
you're
of a
completely valid with
megalomaniac.
that.
He's kind of a megalomaniac for like just kind of being a bitch. Uh, but overall, I think the rest of the movie is pretty good. I really like um the scene where he like first gets the like flight thrusters and is fucking around in the garage. I also really like where he's flying, and he like goes and blows up the terrorist base where he got captured, and then like fights with the planes in the air. I think that's pretty cool. Um, really overall, I like this movie quite a lot. Uh, I think it's a great introduction to Iron Man, and like I don't even know if it's a new genre of superhero movies. But it's a really entertaining movie. I mean, it doesn't like fall short on anything unless you're really like digging into it and trying to like break it down. Um, it's fun to watch. for like an action kids movie, explosions and cool shit standpoint. I think it's also got a lot of value, like with my refined intellectual taste. Um, I think it's got a lot to it. Um, yeah, I think it's just a really cool movie, really well done. It looks amazing, sounds amazing. The characters are like 95% there. Um, yeah, I mean, very, very good. I honestly am gonna stick with my original placement. I'm gonna put it right below Return of the Jedi. Let's have Tyler go.
I'm gonna open up with saying that y'all reviews have sucked because your opinions are wrong. Alright, now I'm just shitting with you. Alright, so Iron Man 1 is pretty interesting of a movie. Now, as people have mentioned before, this is a pretty good start to the MCU as a whole. You could definitely tell that this movie has a different feel than the future ones, though, because things start to get really formulaic around, like, Phase 2 and beyond, especially when we get to, like, the one-offs near Phase 3. But this one definitely has its own sense of identity. It's a little bit darker than a bunch of the other ones, too, with certain scenes and all that stuff. I mean, not too much, because a lot of the more darker elements are either talked about in past, or they're shown off-screen and all that. But regardless, Iron Man 1 definitely still has its very own identity while also being a good introduction to the series as a whole. As for the story and the characters, because since those are wrapped up into one little thing here, let's get that out of the way. I don't really know how you were confused about Obadiah Stane's motivation, because he literally is saying it in his monologue at the end of the movie. But I also understand why you're confused, is because Obadiah Stane acts like a dumbass during the entirety of the finale, but I will get to that when I get to that. As for the actual characters themselves, I was really a big fan of pretty much every single character in this film. Yeah, like the side extra characters are doing completely fine. I love the guy that Tony is stuck with in the cave. Tony himself has a very good arc in this film that I don't think he gets another one comparable to this until fucking Infinity War. Or, like, yeah, until Infinity War. He doesn't get an arc as good as this until Infinity War again. So Tony going from this selfish asshole to, like, seeing the horrors that his weapons are bringing and actually changing as a result of it, it's a pretty harrowing journey. And I like how he doesn't change completely. He still has his snark and his arrogance, and he's just using all of that. And, like, he's got his snark, his arrogance, his intelligence, and he's just using that for something that he thinks he can do better with, a better purpose. And it's fascinating. It's really well done. He's like, obviously Robert Downey Jr. is doing an amazing job in this film. He's got the cocky asshole down to a certain extent. I mean, not to a certain extent. He's got it down like 100%. I think Pepper and Rhodey are also doing pretty good. In fact, I think I like Pepper a lot in this film, honestly, because she's not even Tony's chick yet, really. She's like his. As her assistant, she kind of gets a little bit more freedom to do stuff, as opposed to in later films when she gets captured in Iron Man 3, and I don't remember a single thing that she does in Iron Man 2. It's all very well done. Obadiah Stane, I actually, like, yeah, he's obviously the villain, because his motivation is fucking revealed to you as soon as the film starts. However, I was really a fan of how he and Tony were pretty chummy for a large portion of the film, and I thought that he was pretty interesting, although I'll go over that later in a bit. It's, like, the special effects are really good. They're pretty timeless, honestly. They hold up very, very well. They look great. I mean, the scene where he shoots the tank, it looks amazing. The final action scene's a little bit in the dark, honestly, and you don't get, like, too much detail, but it works out fine enough as is. Like, aesthetics-wise, it's very good, honestly. I like the reincorporate, like, this movie throws a lot of ideas out there, and then it stays consistent with them. Like, that reporter character girl that Tony fucks is through the entire film. They show the arc reactor earlier in the movie, and that's a part of the finale and all that stuff. Like, things are incredibly consistent throughout the movie. It doesn't feel like it wastes anything. Like, everything it introduces, it uses later, and I think that's a very good way to produce a film. So far I've done nothing but complimenting. I think the story is pretty satisfying. It's very engaging at the arc. I have no problems with its pacing for a large majority of it. And then we get to the finale, where it is very disappointing. So let me talk about my first disappointment. Number one, Obadiah Stane is really disappointing when he, like, the entire finale is just rushed. rushed. Because for some reason, Pepper Potts decides to go to Stain's fucking computer and looks up his hentai folder, reveals that he was a bad guy the entire time. And from this point on, we are in the finale, I guess, and things are just fucking zooming at a pace, just so we can have our big climactic battle scene. It's not very well done, in my opinion. It's very stupid that he would just have that on his fucking computer, and it's also really fucking stupid. Another thing, that this movie has a giant missed opportunity. Obadiah Stane is obviously a selfish person, but I think it would have been a lot more interesting if the thing that divided them was like obviously like Tony's activism when he gets back is like a problem for Stain because he wants to keep his weapon manufacturing. But when we learn that he was trying to kill Tony back when he was a selfish asshole, like before then, it ruins any sort of character arc between the two of them. It just makes Stain a fucking like run-of-the-mill villain. You know what I mean? Because he puts a hit on him when Tony was still on his side anyways. I understand that he wants to get a higher place in the company, but I think it would have been a lot more interesting if Stain going like full maniacal on him was actually part of Tony's fault, not just because he came back as like a peace activist, but because his selfishness and secretive nature after he comes back pushes Obadiah to extremes in order to keep the company afloat. Like
That's what I was talking about. That's what I was talking about.
Like, it would have been so much more interesting if Obadiah was just like, if they just didn't say that he put the hit on Tony originally. Because that makes things like so much more messy, and it makes him so much of a more one-dimensional villain as opposed to what he could have been. And don't even get me wrong about his stupid fucking actions in the finale themselves. It might sound like I'm nitpicking. That's because a lot of this film has a very solid base structure. But the reason why I nitpick is that this film has shown me in the past that it is capable of doing deep character arcs and writing them well. Like, the entire first portion of Tony being stuck inside that cave is done incredibly well, even at a deep inspection level. And so when we get later in the film and things fall apart, it's noticeable by a large margin. When the pace starts going to shit, when Obadiah shows up and he's fucking acting like Doomsday over here, like tossing fucking cars around and stuff like that, and like it's really dumb anyways, because like two things. Number one, how the hell would he try and play that off? Like, I understand the film makes a joke about it, that they play off all the fucking crazy shit that they go through, but they already got his data showing that he did it. There's no way he's getting away with that at that rate, and it's just like it's just dumb, honestly. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, the fact that like the whole entire final confrontation where Tony is at the fucking next to the reactor, and he like Obadiah's like, oh, you destroyed my aiming system, and he has a stupid long monologue before Tony, who's in the center of the blast, doesn't die, and fucking Ironmonger dies. It's really stupid. Like, and I also hate the fact that Tony does the neat trick there where he tricks Stain into getting into the same ice problem that he did, but it doesn't do anything. It's really fucking dumb, man. Like, I would have been very satisfied if that's how he beat Stain to begin with, honestly. I think that would have been a great show of his intelligence and all that stuff, instead of them just happening to land on the Arc System building again, so that his other plan will work out. And as much as I love the iconic I Am Iron Man scene, I'm not gonna lie, Tony fucking rambling for a hot second right before he actually gets to say it due to the reporter thing was a little nitpick I didn't like. I didn't like that at all, and it's also because it was just really dumb. It might seem like I'm giving this movie a lot of shit for its finale, but it really just makes me so mad how much they fucking undermine what a good villain could have been. And not to mention that I'm just not a big fan of the final fight scene in general. Like, it annoys the shit out of me, dude, because I enjoyed, like, I was seriously considering S tier for, like, a very long time, but the ending's just, the entire, like, I want to say last fourth was just put a very sour taste in my mouth. Like, there's still so much good qualities about this film, to enjoy, but, like, I don't know, man, I really just did not like that finale at all. It kind of seems like I'm skimming over, like, a middle portion here, because the middle portion of the film is really where we kind of get into, like, and not saying that nothing important happens during that portion, it's where he finally gets his proper Iron Man suit and goes on a test run and all that stuff. But I don't think this film needed to be 2 hours long, necessarily. It definitely is, like, it's fine and all that, but I think it would have just been a little bit better with, like, we didn't need I don't know, man. There could have been changes. It's a good movie. Do not get me wrong in the slightest. It is a good movie. I like how they give a lot of cute character moments for both Pepper and Rhodey in this film. I think Stark is as good as he gets in the other ones. Special effects are great. The whole entire first half of the film has got very great pacing and a very good character arc for Tony. I've said these things already, but they need to be stated because they are legitimately good aspects of this film. Um, but I've already mentioned my complaints with it before. And to me, those are very big complaints because of the numerous missed potential that is placed in it. And it really freaks me off. Now, am I being overreactive? Entirely possible, okay? But this is the biggest complaint I've heard about Iron Man 1. And I'm not trying to be biased saying that the people I've heard talk about it, I'm like fucking teaching what they said to me as gospel. But I can 100% see where they're coming from. Like, it really does not make a whole lot of sense in the finale. I'm not saying this makes it a bad movie, not by any stretch of the margin. But it's a little rough for me to place it as a result. Because I feel like you guys are severely underestimating the rest of the films by placing this in A+ tier. I really, because like I think Enemy in the State and above is where we get into like really good character territory. While I disagree that Rogue One has characters of anything on par with Enemy in the State and above, but it's got Star Wars shit, so I guess that's why it's that high. I think that it does belong in just regular A tier. I was legitimately thinking for a while that I wanted to place this film in S, like above, like below Dawn, but it really falls hard for me, dude. Honestly, like there's just too much in-depth character building in Rise, and the special effects are just like even more impressive. Not just because of how much later it gets released, but just because of how much detail is placed in every single monkey. Again, the character work is amazing in that film, and it's got a satisfying ending, a satisfying beginning. There's just so much to go on in Rise. Even if I'm not biggest fan of the villains are not the important part of Rise. It's the beginning of Caesar's story, and it really works out incredibly well. And, well, Scott didn't say he wanted to put it higher than Return, so I'm not going to argue any further about that. I really like this movie, honestly, but I can go below or above Focus, honestly. Because minus characters, I don't have any other problem with Rogue One, honestly. But I still think it's a better movie than this, honestly. It's really rough for me to rank this accordingly, but I'm going to be a little bit more generous than Brody. I'll place it... man, but I really like Focus. I really like Focus, dude. This is a yikes. This is a hard decision, honestly. I'll agree with Brody just so we have 2 votes in the same place. I'll put it below Focus. That's my place. Alright, Donnie, you're up.
I agree with Tyler on the Obadiah stuff. I think the villain is disappointing, and I think the climax of that scene, I think the fight scene looks good, and I like how they incorporate the final arc reactor in the fight, but my main problem comes with how the fight starts. I feel like what would have been better is Tony like disregarding the police and going straight to Obadiah and saying, fuck you, this is what's happening, I'm just gonna kill you or whatever, or like take you in. But he doesn't, and it's like it kind of comes out really dumb the way that whole intro sequence happens with Pepper and Shield and all that stuff. But from that point on, I think it works out really well. I like the fight scene. I think Obadiah does a good job. I think he's a great character. I think it's cool how Obadiah was... I mean, it's like a predictable twist. I'm not gonna say it's like, I never saw this coming. You really? Obadiah's the bad guy and he funded the terrorists? What? Like, no. You knew it was gonna happen, but I think that Obadiah being that backstabbing guy is still kind of in his character. you can kind of see how he's only latching on to Stark so he can advance himself. And, well, I don't know. I like Obadiah. I think he's a good villain, personally. Other things I really like about this movie, I love how the Mark I Iron Man suit is handled. And how they revamped Iron Man's origin story so that he would be a little more gritty, and how he would he was a weapons manufacturer that is like that's been his conscience is challenged. And that's like one of the most interesting Iron Man stories ever. And that was made up for this movie, and I think they did a really good job with it. I think they did a good job with like turning the Mandarin into like a terrorist group. I think that works out really well. Like the way that they adapted the Iron Man comics into a movie is something like it's one of the best comic book adaptations you'll ever get to see. It's really cool watching, you know, Iron Man 1 come to life and not be fucking cringe. It's really fun. I gotta say I have huge nostalgia bias on this movie. Every scene with like Iron Man when he walks away from the terrorists and there's like a tank that blows up and he walks towards the camera. It's probably in the movie trailer. Oh my god, that scene is so good. I love that scene. When he just like takes down those terrorists, or you know, trying to think of I think Scott said this too, the one where he's like doing his training arc and building his suit. That was awesome. And I think that there's just so many iconic scenes in this movie that, for me at least, like stuck with me. And when they came back, it was just as good as when I saw them. But Tyler's right. The ending isn't as good as you'd like, and when you kind of are expecting something good and kind of flops like that, it sucks. But to put it below Rogue One, you're crazy. I think if you want to put Focus above Rogue One, that's fine. But right now, this is crazy. I could never put it below Rogue One. I'm going to put it below Rise and A+ tier. Lowest I could go is top of A. But yeah, I don't think you really need a complicated villain for Iron Man. Like, I don't think you need him to be like good at the start, but his greed takes over. I think having him greedy the entire way the fuck through is fine. He's like a weapons manufacturer. That's what he does. He's a fucking like, you know, this is what they are. It's fine. He's good. It's like, and another thing I like about Obadiah, just before I end off this review, is kind of like, it's almost as if that's what Tony would be like, if he hadn't had that experience in the cave. And it's like he's looking at a darker version of himself. And, you know, I think that's cool. And it's what he could have became if he just like went on his path of, you know, sex and money and all that bullshit. I really like this movie. I agree that it's not better than Rise. But I think the characters and what it develops puts it and elevates it into A+ tier. Alright, that's it. That's my review.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna take a second to agree with Donnie a fair bit. I think I was a little bit overly harsh to Stain a little bit. I think my biggest problem is I think like not only you are correct. I guess I wasn't expecting like a fall from grace for the man, because he's obviously a greedy asshole as soon as the movie starts. And they put his motivation in motion as soon as they fucking put Tony on a goddamn magazine in front of him after he was in front of it. But I it was just a juxtaposition problem for me because they do that stupid corny scene where Pepper discovers all the shit right before.
I don't like the Pepper scene either.
Yeah.
I'll be honest.
Like
But
they put that
like-
shit in there, and it just feels like so stupid to me. It's just like, yeah, we already know he's the villain. We don't need
like,
evidence.
why do you need fucking Pepper to discover it? Like, he takes out Tony's heart. It's enough for Tony to just like fucking go to him and start the final battle. I like that Pepper would have control of the arc reactor and that she's involved in the final fight. But the whole Pepper and Shield bullshit doesn't need to happen.
Yeah, it's so
That just was out of the movie. I would rate this much higher. But
honestly, yeah, no, because it makes the pacing for the finale super rushed as well. Like, instead of like a more natural conclusion to like how these guys like relationship is falling apart, it just like, I'm bad, I'm big bad, and Pepper's like, oh my god, I found out he's big bad, bad. And then Obadiah fucking teleports over to Tony's house and he's like, haha.
like I could just imagine Tony like flying over and then Obadiah being like, it's called self-defense, Tony. and then like fucking blasting his ass or something. I don't know.
Like,
I think-
okay, well here's my fair thing. I think one big thing I've always wanted to say is I think Rogue One should be below Focus. Can we trade that spot? Because I don't.
I'm fine with that personally, but
Because I just don't like how Rogue One's. I've always said that I think Rogue One should be here. Because I just don't think its characters don't hold up as well as Enemy of the State or Focus. The acting quality doesn't compare to those films. And like it is an issue if you can't put like if you can put it above one and then the other one's a little bit dicier, you know what I mean? Like I don't like Rogue One's placement all that much. Like, it doesn't really scream to me. I don't know.
But I don't know. I think it succeeds on a lot of its character arcs, and I think it fucks up one scene. And I think that it's succeeding on a lot of stuff is what puts it in A+.
Yeah, it is a little rough. I would be a dick and keep fighting for A, but I do think bottom A+ is actually its best place, honestly. I'm gonna agree with Donnie. I think I was overly critical in my review to the point of me just saying things that were false. Again, this film is almost S tier, man. This would be S tier if they didn't have so many shitty seeds in the ending, honestly.
I think Marvel movies are capable of being S tier.
Oh yeah, of course. No.
This show. I didn't even talk about the shitty end credit scene. I don't even count that as part of the movie, to be honest.
Oh my god, whatever. Yeah. Yeah. I will 100% agree with you for bottom A+. I think that's its most fair position.
That does seem pretty fair.
As for this whole shabacle, can we at least move Rogue One below Focus?
I'd agree with you, but
I think so. Yeah.
But Focus is a really good movie.
Focus is
I know. Well, it's also
I'm
getting
just
to the point with
remembering-
a lot of these Will Smith movies. It's been a long ass time since I saw these movies.
I love Will Smith.
I just
Yeah.
remember that guy tattooing the numbers on the back of that horse so that he'd guess the player.
Now,
What a
get me
fucking
wrong, there's
Chad
dumb
move.
shit in Focus, but Rogue One kind of wastes a lot of your time, to be honest with you as well. A lot of dumb
Ugh.
shit.
Rogue One's kind of.
I am one with A tier. A tier is with me.
So I do want to say one last thing.
Iron Man's cool.
One last thing is that if we did not include the plus tiers, do you think this would have been S? I think so.
I wouldn't put her in S.
You would
don't
not
think
put this
so.
in
I
S
think-
if we did
I
not-
would
I
put this
think
in A
no.
tier.
I think this would be like top of A.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
Yep.
Interesting. It's because 7 pounds would be an A tier, and Empire and all that other shit, right?
Yeah.
It would.
Yeah.
That is fair. Because I was 100% about to be like, oh fuck, I was wrong. This shit's gonna be S. They're all gonna make fun of me for it. As I was watching the movie.
Wait a minute. Guys. We all think it's us, right?
For what?
Wait 1 second. Let's actually all change our votes.
No! No, I really thought, I'm like, oh fuck, I'm gonna have to eat my own words. Because I was on record saying there's no way Iron Man's gonna hit S. And I've been wrong about that. I said there's no way Shrek 2 is gonna be S. And I was definitely wrong about that. But yeah, no, this is an incredibly solid start. Very good inclusion, honestly. A+ might be a little bit crowded with how many, like, there are, like, really good Marvel movies. But A plus and B plus, like all the plus tiers are pretty Marvel, honestly. But we'll get to that when we get to that, because next up is fucking the Incredible Hulk.
That's crazy that that's the next movie. Oh shit,
Yeah.
it's gonna be bad.
It's gonna be bad,
That's
dude.
crazy.
How
It's
how?
gonna be awesome.
Oh, I don't want to get our predictions out of the way. We'll save that for later, actually. But you know, we had the camera pointing at the top for all of this movie. It's gonna be down here.
Crazy.
It's gonna be down here.
I do remember liking General Ross in that movie, so
But we will. It's 1 a.m. for us. We'll get to that when we get to that. So, thank you all so much for watching. We'll continue on the Marvel Marathon soon. Bye-bye.
bye bye.